Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to watch a video together. I am interjecting in a couple of places for how things might be different in my class than what this gentleman is saying, but overall his points are very good and will help you to sound much more professional and ready in your writing. Without further ado, here we go.
Now that you know how to write topic sentences for any research paper ever because you watched my last video, it's time to address one of the most common problems that my students have when they first enter my classroom. They don't know how to integrate textual evidence into their papers in a sophisticated way. Have you ever just dropped quotes into your papers? Have you ever introduced quotes with the wording "in the text it says"?
Or this quote means that.
What about for you veteran AP Langers that have done your synthesis paper? Have you ever done the classic source A says, or source B states, or source C claims? Are you the type of person who likes to copy whole paragraphs or multiple sentences and put them in your paper? Yeah, all of what I just mentioned is lousy.
I suck!
So stop. And then just do what I tell you here. Yes, today I, Tim Freitas from the Garden of English, am going to show you how to remediate all of your mistakes and integrate your quotes in the most effective way possible. Learning to do this correctly won't only help you when you write your synthesis paper on your AP Lang exam, it will help you all throughout college in whatever paper you have to write for any subject. Make sure you tune into the whole video as well because I'm going to present a bunch of templates to help you with integrating your quotes as textual evidence. Okay, let's get to business. We're going to start dealing with your quote integration problems. Because we're working on synthesis skills, we're going to continue to use the same horror prompt that I've been using from all of my prior videos.
Obviously, we're not going through all of that, but I think this will make sense even without it. If you'd like, you of course may look him up and find his other videos if you need help in those areas as well.
If you haven't watched any of my past videos with this synthesis project, you're going to want to so you can get all the tips of how to write a strong research paper. This isn't just about the exam, though these videos help. It's about giving you skills for your future. Based on this horror prompt, I'm going to take a moment and show you the thesis that I've already created for the paper itself. It's right here on the screen. While it is documented that horror-based entertainment may be harmful to a child's psychological development, commercialized fear can actually be beneficial to individuals because such media provides them with safe ways to explore their natural instincts that draw them towards understanding the unknown and simultaneously allows people to build stronger social and individual bonds.
Okay. In looking at this thesis sentence, it is an incredibly sophisticated thesis. I do not expect that all of your thesis sentences will be this detailed and this sophisticated. However, it's a good thing to look at and model and know how it can help guide the reader through what the paper is going to be about. Your thesis should state whatever the problem is and the reasons, the things that you are going to be covering in your paper. For more information on that, you can see Professor Smith's Magic Thesis Formula, which will be posted in the Writing Resources in the Shirley Jackson module.
Okay, in my last video, we used this thesis to create topic sentences, and here's the topic sentence that we're going to use for today to help us learn how to integrate textual evidence. Although early exposure to horror-based entertainment can potentially lead some to develop negative emotional responses, studies that focus on teen and adult behaviors seem to suggest that when this type of entertainment is consumed in appropriate settings, the end results are actually quite enriching for an individual. What this topic sentence does is guide me to know that I need to integrate textual evidence that relates to studies that focus on teen and adult behaviors and the benefits that they get from engaging with horror-based entertainment. Now, the first rule you need to know about adding quotes into your paper is that you can't just drop them right on in. They can't just stand on their own. Doing this makes your writing sound clunky, awkward, out of place, and it doesn't show that you can combine your thoughts with the thoughts of others. Seeing as though the point of a synthesis paper is to prove that you can actually synthesize your thoughts with others, you're hurting your case if you let your quotes try to stand on their own without actually putting it with your words. So let's take a look here at an example of what I mean by suggesting that it gets really clunky if you just drop quotes in. Although early exposure to horror-based entertainment can potentially lead some to develop negative emotional responses, studies that focus on teen and adult behaviors seem to suggest that when this type of entertainment is consumed in appropriate settings, the end results are actually quite enriching for an individual. People who consume violent and scary entertainment rarely do it alone. One suggestion is that, like play, it allows us to rehearse possible threatening scenarios from a position of relative safety. Hopefully you can see and hear how out of sorts this whole beginning to a paragraph sounds because quotes are just dropped right in. Now, it's nice that the student is trying to use at least two sources in a single body paragraph. I do recommend you do that. But
For my essays, you only have to use one quote per paragraph. However, if you want to add more, you can. It's just that one is the bare minimum. And again, for my papers, you must directly quote. We will not be doing paraphrase on this for the credit. You can add paraphrases, of course, in addition to your direct quote, but you must have a direct quote.
But the whole thing sounds out of sorts and nonsensical because the thoughts of others are kept separate from the thoughts of the writer. And the writer doesn't indicate that both of these quotes come from psychological journal studies, so there's no connection of this evidence to what is already directed in the topic sentence. We're seeing a breakdown of a line of reasoning here. So what's the easiest way that you can combine your thoughts with the thoughts of others? Well, by embracing these tips. Don't have more than 15 words in any set of quotation marks.
My rule is no more than 40. But briefer is better. So make sure that you're only saying the parts that you really, really need to quote. On the opposite side of that, however, saying something like researchers suggest is not enough for a quote. Anything that's just common language or one or two words or the name of an organization, that alone is not enough to be considered a quote from a source. You need to have enough that it's clearly someone else's words that you're using, but not so much that they take over your own thoughts
When they're in your writing. Now, feel free to have multiple quotes in a single sentence, but in any set of those quotations, 15 words max. That's it. And quite frankly, that's a lot of words. Also, you want to try to combine text from multiple sources into one sentence where your words make up the majority of the sentence and establish a relationship between the two sources. If I were to do this source combination focusing on the advice I just offered, my topic sentence and quote integration would actually be improved and look like this. Although early exposure to horror-based entertainment can potentially lead some to develop negative emotional responses, studies that focus on teen and adult behaviors seem to suggest that when this type of entertainment is consumed in appropriate settings, the end results are actually quite enriching for an individual. For example, one commonality that researchers often observe about those who attend horror movies is that most people, no matter the age, rarely view these films alone, as they rehearse possible threatening scenarios that are experienced in the films.
Note here how he has added the brackets when he has changed the tense or wording slightly from his original source. You can do this to make things make sense. For instance, if you are writing in present tense, but your source is using past tense, you would use the brackets to change the verb into present tense to match your own writing. That is an acceptable change. However, you cannot change the meaning or large pieces of the original text in this way. So be very, very careful with that and use it very judiciously.
Would you look at that? You'll notice that my quotes are nice and short. I have two different sources in a single sentence, and I even mentioned researchers in order to make sure that my quotes can clearly be linked to the studies that are mentioned in my topic sentence. You should also notice how when you read my piece, you can't tell how my words end and the quotes begin, besides the fact that you can see the quotation marks.
That is exactly as it should be. If I am reading your paper, if I did not see quotation marks there, or if someone were reading it to me with my eyes closed and I couldn't see the text, I shouldn't be able to tell where the quoted text begins and your own words end. It should integrate smoothly and cleanly throughout.
Also note that I cited my source material as well. And that's how you can really know if you've integrated your textual evidence well. Reading the sentence or sentences aloud will be seamless. No bumps, just a smooth ride. Alright, back to business. The second rule you need to know about adding quotes to your paper is this. You shouldn't add the name of the person or organization that created the quote that you're putting into your sentence unless you need to rely on that person or institution's credibility to help build your argument. Think about it. Let's pretend that Evan called me and told me that I had a disease. Who cares? Who the nonsense is Evan? Why should I even care what Evan thinks? How would Evan even know if I had a disease? But if I were to say, Evan, my doctor called and revealed I had a disease, now that's pretty significant. Why? Because Evan's credentials have weight. So when you're writing your synthesis paper on exam day or any research paper really, whenever you put an author's or organization's name in a sentence, make sure to follow it with a non-essential phrase or clause that details the credentials of the person or institution that you're actually quoting from.
This pro tip is not applicable to us. He tells you to offset this information with em dashes. In modern writing, We try not to use em dashes anymore because they are a hallmark and an indicator of AI authorship. Few students in beginning level English classes properly know when and how to integrate an em dash into text. And if it is there, it almost always will cause a modern professor to say, wait a minute, did the student really write this? For my class, if you are offsetting a phrase about an author, instead of using the em dashes as he says here, you should use commas to make it in a positive phrase, which can be lifted out of the sentence and the sentence still makes sense. But that way you know that you will not have that AI flag come up and wonder who you are and if you wrote this and cause any sort of issues.
As a pro tip, when you do this and you include that non-essential, delineate it with dashes. And the reason why is because that's an advanced writing technique. Let's take a look at an example of how to add names and credentials as a way to include quotes into your paper. Although early exposure to horror-based entertainment can potentially lead some to develop negative emotional responses, studies that focus on teen and adult behaviors seem to suggest that when this type of entertainment is consumed in appropriate settings, the end results are actually quite enriching for an individual. For example, one commonality that Jeffrey Goldstein, a psychology professor and violent entertainment researcher from Utrecht University, has observed about those who attend horror movies is that most people, no matter the age, rarely view these films alone as they rehearse possible threatening scenarios that are experienced in the movies.
Note here that he has used a hyphen in horror-based, which is appropriate and should be continued. However, here where he has used an em dash in between the appositive phrase, a psychology professor and violent entertainment researcher from Utrecht University, this could be just as easily and appropriately set off with commas instead of an em dash in a modern classroom in 2026 and beyond. Put a comma and put another comma and do not use the em dashes. Again, those em dashes tend to indicate to modern professors that this is an AI generated text, so please don't use them. Even if you have used them appropriately and correctly in your prior writing, it is a red flag in modern writing.
Look at that. That quote integration is strong. It flows, has short quotes, meaningfully adds the name and credentials of the actual source, and combines multiple sources in one sentence. That's delicious. And sophisticated. Those of you that have ever written something along the lines of in the text it says or the text states, the next rule is you need to stop this. Such phraseology is just silly. Think about it. Do you hear that? No, I didn't think so, because the text can't actually say anything. So stop. Just stop. Please.
Stop it. Get some help.
All right. Now this last rule actually works in tandem with the one that I just told you about. No more of the in the text it says. But now, if you're going to include an author or organization name, once you've provided the credentials that you're relying on, please, 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 please do not write the author says, states, or claims. There are 8 trillion better verbs that you can use to more accurately project what the author is actually trying to do with the research or argument that the author is presenting. Here are these verbs: argues, presents, observes, details, theorizes, posits, suggests, refutes, challenges, exposes. Honestly, you can use anything but says, states, or claims. They're all garbage. Go back and check out the last example of the strong quote integration that I showed you, and notice how I said that Goldstein has observed the information and then I integrated his quote into my paragraph. No says, no states, no claims. Now, I'm really trying to offer you all the help that I can to make you a better writer, but I want to add one more aid here. I have more templates for quote integration than I covered in this video, but I wanted to make sure that you had access to them too. So I'm of course going to link them down in the description below, and I'm going to show you some more templates that you can use to integrate quotes right on your screen in just a moment.
I will also include his link so that you can find that information if you choose. If you'd like to look at the examples on the screen, please hit pause here and take a gander.
Many of these templates provide more nuance than the general tips that I've exemplified in this video. So make sure that you check them out and see if you can add them into your writing and of course, make your writing better. You won't regret adopting them into what you do.